What Glinda did was inexcusable. All because a man you met in college didn't want you back? I understand a canon event, but the man you date at 19 is never, ever worth a body. Okay, unless you are living under a rock, by now you have absolutely heard of Wicked, the newest entry to the Oz canon.
Quick history lesson. The movie is based on a Broadway musical hit, which is loosely adapted from a book, which is a revisionist retelling of an even older book, which was adapted into one of the biggest movies of all time.
Are you still with me? Good. So Wicked is about all of the witches pre-Wizard of Oz. The story is prompted by a munchkin who asks Glinda if it's true that she was once friends with the Wicked Witch of the West. Glinda sends us back in time to her days at Shiz University, where she and the Wicked Witch, Elphaba, first became friends.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
In part 1, we are reintroduced to several characters we already met in The Wizard of Oz. Glinda the Good Witch, the Wicked Witch of the West, whose name is actually Elphaba, and the Wizard. And if you really like The Wizard of Oz, then you'll probably remember that the witch who died at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz is not Elphaba, but her sister, who we finally meet in Act 1 of Wicked. Her name is Nessa Rose. Now, if that alone was too much of a spoiler for you, I want you to pause this, add it to your watch later playlist, and come back next year, because I do not want anyone crying in my comments, and I plan on spoiling, like it's a complete spoiler video. So don't watch this now. Watch it later. Okay, you've been warned. Alright, Act 2 is messy. So it starts at a surprise engagement party for Fiyero and Glinda. Well, it's a surprise for Fiyero. Everybody else was in on it. At the party, Fiyero agrees to marry Glinda, but you can tell he does not care about that girl at all. Also, between Act 1 and 2, the governor of Munchkinland, also known as Elphaba and Nessa Rose's dad, died of embarrassment. That's according to Nessa Rose, and honestly, you can't trust a word coming out of her mouth, so. Nessa then became the new governor of Munchkinland and is still obsessed with Bok. She has turned him into her personal slave so that he can never leave her, which obviously made him very miserable. And she didn't stop at Bok. Nope, none of the Munchkins have any rights or freedom, so they all hate her and want her dead. Elphaba sneaks into their house to ask Nessa for help. Nessa says no because she's mad her sister has been using all of these magic powers on random animals instead of on her. Elphaba's better than me because I would have left right then and there, but she still tries to help her sister by enchanting those slippers. Yes, the ones that Dorothy wears in The Wizard of Oz, those slippers. And the spell works. Nessa walks for the first time. This is great news for Bok because he thinks he can finally get away from her. He tells Nessa she never really had a chance with him because he lost his heart to Glinda from day one. Huge mistake. She gets so mad, she casts a broken spell that almost kills him. Then her annoying ass begs Elphaba to save him, so Elphie turns him into something that doesn't need a heart. Nessa blames the whole thing on Elphaba because she literally sucks, and then Bok, sorry, the Tin Man, runs away screaming. Elphaba hits up the wizard next and agrees to work with him as long as he sets the monkeys free. He does without hesitation, which honestly surprised me. But then she notices a trembling blanket in the corner and realizes that man has been holding her goat professor captive in his chambers. What a freak. He thinks a good defense right now is telling Elphaba that they needed to silence the goat because he couldn't stop speaking out.
Were you silent? Or were you silenced? The latter.
And Elphaba's like, yeah, no, never mind. We are not cool. And so the wizard calls his guards on her. Thankfully, Fiyero comes in, sees her, and plays smart, not hard. He aims his gun at her and tells his guards to go and get him some water so he can melt her. But then as soon as they leave, he puts the gun down and goes and grabs the wizard. Then Glinda walks in and tells him to be smart, aka be a cop. But he tells her to go back to their party because he's leaving with Elphaba. I would have simply thrown up everywhere. Glinda's pissed off that she missed whatever was going on between them all this time behind her back. So when the wizard and Madame Morrible are trying to come up with a way to get Elphaba to come back, Glinda suggests they use Elphaba's little sister. That's when Glinda got back on my bad side. See, I don't like Nessa because she sucks, but what Glinda did was inexcusable. All because a man you met in college didn't want you back? Please be serious. I understand a canon event, but the man you date at 19 is never, ever worth a body. Also, in this scene, Glinda notices the wizard drinking out of a little green bottle, which will be important later. Later that night in the forest, Fiyero and Elphaba sing this sexually charged duet. Just for this moment, as long as you're mine. And then she says that something's wrong with her sister and then just runs off. See, if that were me, I would have stayed in the forest with Fiyero because that's my man, my man, my man. Okay, but she was right to worry because that hillbilly farm girl Dorothy dropped her entire house on the girl. Now, I don't like Nessa at all, but a whole house on her body? Was that necessary? And then Glinda had the nerve to give Dorothy Nessa's shoes? All this over Fiyero? This is a crash out to end all crash outs, I think. Elphaba appears.
Ariana, what are you doing here?
Obviously pissed off about her sister being dead and the shoes, and says, well, he never loved you, Glinda. He only ever loved me. Which, true and deserved. But Glinda's a little bitch, so she slaps Elphaba, and then Elphaba slaps her back, and then it turns into a Bad Girls Club fight outtake. They don't stop until the guards find them and pull them apart, and then out of nowhere, Fiyero drops in and threatens to shoot Glinda if they don't let Elphaba go, so they do. Elphaba flies away on her Swiffer Jet 1900, and the guards tie up Fiyero and take him to a field nearby where they plan to torture him until he tells them where Elphaba went. When Elphie gets to Fiyero's castle, their hideout place, she casts a spell to protect him from harm in any way that she can. Then Elphaba comes to the conclusion that she's not a good person and won't try to do any good deeds anymore because they always end up hurting the people she cares about. At the same time, an angry mob has formed outside of the wizard's palace calling for Elphaba's death. Bok tells the crowd that the witch turned him into a tin man. He also introduces us to the lion, the cub from Act 1, who she and Fiyero had broken out of its cage in the classroom. Apparently, it's completely her fault that the lion is cowardly now because he never learned to fight his own battles. Just like it's completely her fault that Bok kinda got his karma for how he treated Nessa in Act 1. Hot take. Glinda wants to do something to stop them from spreading all of these lies about her friend, but Morrible stops her. We then jump past a large portion of the Wizard of Oz movie and fast forward to the part where the witch is holding Dorothy captive in Fiyero's castle. Glinda arrives and begs her to let Dorothy go, but I don't think Elphaba was asking too much. Just take the shoes off. Remove my red bottoms. They belong to me. They're mine. Why are you wearing them? They're not yours, they're mine. Now they're all cuffed up when they were beautiful and perfect when they were on my sister's feet. I'd be mad too. Red bottoms? Red bottoms? I get her. I get her. She's justified to me. Dorothy dropped a house on her sister, and the only thing this woman is asking for are the shoes. That's it. That's all she has left of her family. The shoes. And a little empty bottle.
Few moments later.
Elphaba tells Glinda. Elphaba tells Glinda. You know how a term for gay men used to be friend of Dorothy? I feel like Tinder could have had a cool cross activation with Wicked Glinda. No? Elphaba tells Glinda to go, but Glinda insists she's going to tell everyone the truth about Elphaba and the wizard. Elfie doesn't want that because she believes Glinda will lose all of her power, credibility, influence if she sides with her, and she can do a whole lot more good with the power she currently has. So they make up, and while they're hugging, they hear a noise, so Elphaba hides Glinda away before anyone sees her there. From her hiding spot, Glinda watches Dorothy melt her best friend. By the time the coast is clear for Glinda to look, all that is left of her friend is the ugly hat that her grandma gave her. While she's processing what the hell just happened, the head flying monkey hands Glinda Elphaba's empty little green bottle, and she recognizes it as identical to the one the wizard was holding a few scenes ago. So she goes back to the wizard's palace to confront Morrible and the wizard. When she shows the wizard Elphaba's empty bottle, he finally makes the connection to her mother and realizes that Elphaba was his daughter. He sinks to the floor and cries like the weak little loser he is. Glinda banishes him from Oz and sends Morrible to prison for the rest of her life. We switch back to Fiero's castle. The scarecrow walks in, kneels down, and knocks on the floor under Elphaba's hat 3 times. A trapdoor in the floor suddenly opens, and Elphaba pops out alive and well. I'm really wondering how they decide to do this in the movie. The scarecrow helps her up and through the trapdoor, and she immediately recognizes him as... I swear Act 2 of Wicked is just gag after gag after gag. They agree that they can never return to Oz or tell anyone, especially Glinda, that they're still alive. The show ends back at the wizard's palace, where a grieving Glinda addresses Emerald City as the new leader of Oz. And basically, we are back to the beginning of Act 1 pre-flashback. The end. If you enjoyed this movie musical precap, make sure to check out my Mean Girls musical movie review, and let me know what you're most excited to see in Wicked Part 2 in the comments.